X-23, which comes out in a few days and people are excited. What's up, nerds? We're going to go over the much anticipated release, covering its positive, its negatives, potential deck lists, and whether or not X-23 is worth your hard-earned tokens or your spotlight caches. So X-23 reads, when this is discarded or destroyed, regenerate it at a random location and you get +1 energy next turn. So mechanically, this card will function exactly like Wolverine, which means we can expect X-23 to show up in almost any list that would consider running our little hairy dude. The only downside of how she actually functions is the fact that it's going to regenerate or pop up at a random location. Sometimes you won't want to destroy her again to get the effect again, and sometimes she'll just pop into one of those locations where you can't do it again, or like play cards. Death Domain, Sanctum Sanctorum, stuff like that. Before we get into some potential deck lists here, let's just say the summary of this card, I think it's going to be very good, worth the tokens and spotlight caches to open up, but it's not going to be universally good. It's going to be one of the best cards in either a discard or destroy deck. And while at first that seems like it may be only good in like, you know, Deadpool type destroy decks and the standard discard decks you see running around, I actually think it opens up deck building for a few interesting variations on those archetypes. And as far as the new type of deck this card would enable, this is a good example. I would categorize this as a discard control deck, similar to the Black Bolt, Stature, Darkhawk type decks that are going around now. So Shang-Chi, Gambit, and Killmonger make up a pretty brutal tech package here. Killmonger also enables us to not only discard X-23, but then destroy it, so we get 2 triggers off of her potentially. And then as far as power goes, we have Free Swarms, Dakin, Bolt, Stature, and then Iron Lad is like a supplement here to your Gambit, Killmonger, Shang-Chi, Dakin, Black Bolt type effects. But yeah, I think this list is going to be super sweet. I'm for sure trying it. It's got hand disruption, it can kill almost everything on the board, it's got consistency, and it's going to be able to put out a pretty explosive turn 6. Next up is just regular destroy. I'm sure all of you have already considered what X-23 would look like in this sort of list, but I don't think it can be overstated how much better X-23 is going to make your standard destroy or Deadpool decks. The 1 energy every turn basically means you can play your Deadpool alongside whatever else on the next turn. It also means you can get out your Null on turn 5, or on turn 6 you can do Null and Deadpool. That was really one of the main things holding back Null from being a actually really good card when it comes to typical destroy decks, is it takes up a whole turn. You know, if you get lucky you might be able to play Null and Death on the same turn, but now you can play Null on turn 5 or turn 6. Next up is just regular discard. Basically, X-23 here is just going to let us play out an extra discard card per game, or do things like get Dracula out on turn 3 or MODOK out on turn 4. While that may not seem like a lot, having 1 extra discard trigger per game lets us get another free swarm, a bigger apocalypse, etc., etc. I'm sure you've played the discard list before, and usually what happens is by the time you want to play MODOK, you're discarding a couple of things in your hand that would have been nice to play throughout the game. Well, now you can. Last up is a Nimrod Destroyer deck. X-23 and Psylocke make up the ramp here. Usually you would be running something like just a single Electro to be able to do the turns where you go Electro into Nimrod into Destroyer and then do extra things on turn 6. Except here it's pretty much the same, except we can tempo our ramp out with X-23 and then just destroying it once next turn, then a turn after that, and basically we won't have to rely on a single Electro to be able to do our crazy explosive turns, and we can just play like a normal game where we're just doing things turn by turn instead of just, you know, everything on turn 5 and 6. I think X-23 is actually going to be pretty decent in Galactus as well. For instance, you could just take this deck and put Galactus where Chavez is and something where Deathlock is, like maybe a Hobgoblin, and you have a Galactus list. So to wrap up, I think X-23 is going to be a staple in any destroy deck, possibly any discard deck that is made from here on out. Not only is it going to be a staple in those standard type destroy and discard lists, I think it's going to enable a couple of interesting new type of decks, like hybrid lists that nobody has thought of yet. Final judgment? Buy this with a smile on your face, but only if you like destroy and discard mechanics. But if you don't like those things, then this whole season is not for you, is it? So yeah, if you don't like destroying stuff and discarding stuff, save your tokens and wait till September when all the Loki stuff comes out. This is gonna be a pretty cool season too. That's it though. Any ideas? Anything I missed? Any interesting interactions you've noticed that might come up with X-23? Leave them in the comment section below. But for now, see you in the next video. Later, nerds.